everyone, welcome back. Are you ready to dive deep into Wicked? We're going to uncover what makes Maguire's retelling of The Wizard of Oz so captivating, so interesting.
Awesome.
And, on the surface, it seems like a pretty simple story. We're getting Elphaba's side of things, the so-called Wicked Witch of the West. But this analysis is pointing out that there's actually a lot more going on.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Than just her perspective.
Definitely. Maguire uses a third-person omniscient narrator, so we get glimpses into everyone's thoughts and feelings, not just Elphaba.
Oh, that's interesting. I never really thought about it like that. So it's like we're getting the VIP backstage pass to all the characters.
Exactly. We see their motivations, their complexities. It gives you a much richer understanding of the story.
So we're not just seeing Elphaba trying to be good while everyone else labels her wicked. We're actually, like, in her head, seeing the world through her eyes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes Maguire's writing so compelling. Take Elphaba, for example. We see her wrestling with authority, questioning everything.
That's so true.
It makes her relatable, especially when she's going up against a system that's determined to misunderstand her.
It's like we're getting the real story, not just the fairy tale version.
I like that, the real story. And that shifting perspective also lets us see how differently Elphaba and Glinda view the world.
Oh, that's a good point.
Glinda, she's so focused on appearances, popularity.
Right.
She's blind to what Elphaba sees so clearly.
So that really sets up their conflict so well.
Perfectly.
And speaking of seeing things differently, we have to talk about the color green.
Oh yeah, Elphaba's green skin.
It's not just a random detail. This analysis is saying it's actually a really powerful symbol.
Absolutely. The analysis dives deep into how green represents otherness, that feeling of being rejected by society.
And it also makes me think of nature, strength, like a tree pushing up through concrete.
Yes, the duality is important. Elphaba's greenness isn't just about being different, it's about resilience, connecting to something bigger
than those narrow minds that just see her as different.
Exactly.
Is there a specific example in the book of how this plays out?
Definitely. The analysis mentions how Maguire often highlights Elphaba's greenness at key moments, like when she's facing prejudice at Shiz University.
Oh, so like her difference is being used against her.
It's like a visual reminder of how unfairly she's being treated.
So Maguire's using that green skin to make a statement about discrimination.
Precisely. It adds a whole other layer to Wicked, encouraging us to think about how we treat people who are different in our own world.
It's not just a fantasy story anymore, it's making a statement.
It is.
Wow, so much depth in one little detail. Okay, so we've got unreliable narrators, color symbolism. What else is Maguire using to create this complex story?
Well, let's talk about Oz itself.
Okay.
The analysis suggests that it's not just a magical land.
What do you mean?
It's a reflection of our world, especially when it comes to politics.
Wait, so Oz is actually commentary on real-world politics?
You got it.
That's so cool. I never would have thought of that.
It's pretty clever, right?
Yeah.
Maguire uses Oz as this microcosm to critique things like authoritarianism and the struggle for civil rights.
So the wizard isn't just a bumbling old man behind a curtain. He represents something much bigger.
Exactly. Think about how he uses propaganda, controls information, how he persecutes the animal.
You're right. I never thought about it like that before.
It makes you question those in power, right? Are they always who they seem?
And the animals, how does that tie into civil rights?
Well, think of Dr. Dillamond, the talking goat.
Oh, yeah, Elphaba's favorite professor.
He's denied his basic rights, silenced by the wizard's regime.
It's like a parallel to real-world discrimination.
Exactly. And speaking of control, the source material mentions the wizard spying on his citizens.
Oh, yeah, the whole surveillance thing.
It's like Maguire's drawing parallels to concerns we have in our own world about government overreach.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Definitely.
I'm starting to see Wicked in a whole new light.
It's not just a fantasy story, is it?
It's a reflection of our own world, our own struggles.
And we're just getting started. Remember that scene where Elphaba first learns to fly?
Oh, yeah. Chills every time. Pure magic.
Well, it turns out it's about way more than just magic.
Really? Tell me more.
Flying, in this context, represents Elphaba's desire for freedom.
Freedom.
Not just physically, but freedom from society's expectations. It's about breaking free from limitations.
Like she's literally rising above it all.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful parallel to her character arc.
Okay.
She starts out terrified,
Right.
but she overcomes that fear.
Which shows her courage and determination.
Right, and the source material highlights this scene where she conquers that fear and takes to the sky.
It's a powerful image.
It is. She's defying both her internal doubts and the limitations others have placed on her.
Maguire really packed so much meaning into that one scene.
He did.
Okay, so we've got the flying, and the source material mentions Maguire's attention to detail.
Oh, absolutely. His writing is full of these little things that enhance the story.
Like what?
His descriptions are so rich. Think about how he describes the Emerald City, that corrupt glamour,
It's like you can feel the cobblestones under your feet.
or the isolation of Munchkinland.
It's like he's painting a picture with words.
Exactly. And then there's Elphaba's humor.
Oh, yeah. Her dark wit. I love that about her.
Maguire has a knack for infusing even the darkest moments with wit and irony.
Her sarcasm is so good.
It adds so much to her character. She sees through the hypocrisy,
Of the world around her.
and her humor is like a form of rebellion.
It's like she's saying, I see right through you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing. And she uses that humor to challenge Glinda's worldview, too.
Which makes their dynamic so interesting.
It's brilliant. Glinda's naivete is constantly being poked at by Elphaba's sharp wit.
I love how Maguire uses humor not just to entertain, but to make us think.
It's like a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down, right?
That's a perfect analogy. Okay, so we've got humor. It says Wicked is also a coming-of-age story.
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, really? On the surface, it's about witches and wizards and all that.
Right, but at its core, it's about Elphaba's journey of self-discovery.
Okay, I can see that.
She starts as this misunderstood outcast, trying to find her place in a world that doesn't get her.
Which is something we can all relate to.
Exactly. We've all felt like outsiders at some point. And through her experiences, her relationships, her struggles, Elphaba learns to embrace who she truly is.
So it's a classic coming-of-age story, but with a magical twist.
Precisely. Maguire takes this universal theme and infuses it with imagination and complexity. It's one of the reasons the book resonates with so many readers.
It's inspiring to see Elphaba defy expectations and forge her own path. So we've got coming of age, we've got political commentary, we've got humor, we've got magic.
And we're just scratching the surface. There's still so much to uncover about Wicked.
You're right, we've covered a lot of ground, but there's so much more to explore.
Definitely.
And I'm ready for more.
Me too. Let's dive back in. Welcome back to our deep dive into Wicked. We've uncovered some pretty fascinating stuff so far, right?
Seriously, I'm seeing the book in a whole new light now.
I told you there were layers, and there's still more to uncover. The analysis talks about something called intertextual references.
Intertextual references, that sounds kind of complicated.
And it's actually pretty cool. It basically means that Maguire is weaving in elements from other texts, specifically the original Oz stories by L. Frank Baum.
So he's not just retelling the story, he's like building on it, connecting it back to those classic books.
Exactly. He's taking familiar characters and events from Baum's books and filtering them through this Wicked lens.
So they fit with the darker, more complex themes he's going for.
Precisely.
Do you have a specific example?
Sure. Let's look at the wizard himself.
Okay.
In Baum's books, he's this kind, but somewhat incompetent ruler.
Right. Well-meaning, but a little clueless.
Exactly. But in Wicked, Maguire makes him much more cunning and manipulative.
Oh, that's interesting.
He's not just bumbling around behind a curtain anymore.
So in Maguire's version, the wizard becomes a symbol of something darker, something more sinister.
Exactly. He represents unchecked power and how authority figures can manipulate people.
That's pretty relevant to our world, isn't it?
Definitely. It makes you think about who you trust,
And how power can be used.
for good or for evil.
It's like a reminder to always question those in charge.
Right. Maguire takes these familiar figures and forces us to see them in a new way.
Okay, so we've got these intertextual references, but what about Maguire's writing itself? The analysis also talked about his use of language.
Oh, his prose is fantastic.
Yeah.
He uses such vivid descriptions.
Right.
It's like he's painting a picture with words.
You can practically smell the dusty air of Munchkinland.
Exactly. And his descriptions of the Emerald City, he captures that beauty, but also hints at something darker underneath.
It's not just a place of wonder and magic anymore. It feels more real, more complex.
Right, you can sense the secrets, the hidden agendas.
It adds a layer of tension, of uncertainty.
Exactly. And then there's Elphaba's humor.
Oh, yeah. That dry wit. Her sarcasm is so good.
Maguire has a knack for infusing even the darkest moments with his wry humor.
It makes Elphaba such a compelling character.
It does. Those little asides, her observations, they add so much depth.
She sees through the hypocrisy of the world around her.
And her humor is like this subtle form of rebellion.
Like she's saying, I see right through you, and I'm not playing your game.
Exactly. And it's so refreshing. And it creates this fantastic dynamic between her and Glinda.
Oh, totally. Glinda's so naive.
She is. And Elphaba just pokes at that with her sharp wit.
It's a brilliant contrast. And I love how Maguire uses humor not just to entertain,
But to make us think.
it's that spoonful of sugar that makes the tougher ideas go down easier.
I like that analogy. Speaking of thought-provoking ideas, the analysis brings up something interesting. It suggests Wicked is also a coming-of-age story.
Wait, really? I mean, on the surface, it's about witches and wizards and magic and all that.
It is, but at its core, Wicked is also about Elphaba's journey of self-discovery.
Okay, I can kind of see that.
She starts out as this misunderstood outsider,
Right.
trying to find her place.
Which is something we can all relate to at some point in our lives.
Exactly. We've all felt that way, like we don't belong. And through all her experiences, her struggles,
Or triumphs.
Elphaba learns to embrace who she truly is.
It's like she's taking control of her own narrative, writing her own story.
Exactly. That's why it resonates with so many people. We all feel that pressure to conform.
To fit.
And seeing Elphaba defy those expectations, it's powerful.
It is. It's like she's giving us permission to do the same.
Embrace who you are no matter what.
I love that. Okay, so we've got coming of age, we've got political commentary, we've got humor, we've got magic, we've got a whole lot going on here.
We do.
And I have a feeling there's still more to uncover.
Oh, definitely. Are you ready for part 3?
Lead the way! Okay, so we're back for the final part of our Wicked deep dive.
Wow, time flies when you're dissecting a masterpiece, right?
It really does, and we've uncovered so much already.
Layers upon layers.
Unreliable narrators,
Yeah.
symbolism, political commentary. I mean, it's incredible how much Maguire packed into this book.
You really did.
But before we get to the language part of this analysis, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier
Sure.
about Wicked being a coming-of-age story. I'm really intrigued by that idea.
It's a fascinating aspect, isn't it? It's easy to get caught up in the magic and the politics and all that.
Right.
But at its core, Wicked is about Elphaba's journey, her self-discovery. Remember, she starts out as this outcast, this misunderstood.
Misfit.
Yeah, trying to navigate a world that's constantly trying to define her.
By her green skin, by her differences.
Exactly. And that feeling of being an outsider, of not fitting in, that's something so many people can relate to.
It's a universal experience, isn't it?
It is. And through her experiences, through her relationships, her challenges,
Elphaba starts to embrace who she truly is.
she sheds those labels that others try to put on her.
It's like she's reclaiming her narrative, you know,
Yes. She's writing her own story.
instead of letting others write it for her.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons Wicked resonates with so many readers. We've all felt that pressure to conform.
To fit into a mold that doesn't quite fit.
And to see Elphaba defy those expectations, it's incredibly powerful.
It's inspiring. It's like she's giving us permission to do the same,
To embrace our true selves.
no matter what.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that message, that's at the heart of what makes Wicked so much more than just a retelling.
It's a story that makes you think, makes you question.
It challenges us to look beyond the surface, to see the world through different eyes.
So what does all this mean for us, you know, as readers?
And people navigating this crazy world.
Exactly.
Well, I think Wicked encourages us to embrace nuance, to understand that things aren't always black and white, good versus evil.
There's a lot of gray area.
There is. It also invites us to consider other perspectives, the perspectives of those we might see as different, to recognize the humanity in everyone.
Even those we might be quick to label or dismiss.
Exactly. Everyone has a story, even those who might seem wicked at first glance.
And Wicked challenges us to think critically about the systems of power in our own world.
To question those in authority.
To fight for what's right, even when it's hard.
Yes.
I have to say, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me. I feel like I understand Wicked and Maguire on a whole new level now.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope it inspires you to look for those hidden depths in other stories, too.
Oh, absolutely. To read with a more critical eye.
An open mind.
And I have a feeling our listeners will too. So to everyone out there, as you continue on your own reading journeys, remember what we've learned from Wicked. Embrace complexity, question your assumptions, and never be afraid to see the world from a different perspective.
Couldn't said it better myself.
Well, that brings us to the end of our Wicked deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring this incredible book with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us on this literary adventure. We'll see you next time, and until then, happy reading.